Today, I'm going to show you a technique that can be used to elevate pretty much any garment. We're going to be able to take some clothing that maybe looks a little too homemade or just not fitting right, and we're going to make it look custom made, fitting you beautifully. And it's definitely going to be a bit more stylish. We're going to do this by adding princess lines to an existing garment. Today, I'm going to be turning this oversized shirt that does not fit me very well, and it's going to turn into a beautiful fitted dress. Now you could add these to a shift dress or maybe a skirt that's too big. And we're gonna go over this process in very detailed instructions so that way you can add this technique to any project that you have. And you're gonna wanna stay tuned to the end so you can see how this shirt transforms into a fitted dress. It's gonna make you so glad that you learned this technique. Real quick, before we start, if you're enjoying Sewing Anastasia, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you wanna learn more about sewing, make sure you check out my online and in-person classes, along with my online sewing club. There's links down below for everything. Now let's get back to changing up this shirt with princess lines. First, let's talk about what princess lines are. They are seams that run through the garment at the quarter points. You're gonna notice one goes through the bust, the biggest part of the bust there in the center. And then if we turn the dress form around, you're also gonna see another princess line. These ones are also running at that quarter point in the body. So there are 4 princess lines, one on each side of the body in the front and one on each side of the body in the back. Now, why do we use a princess line? We're going to use the princess line to create shape in the garment. So you're going to notice that garments that have princess lines will not have darts in them generally because the dart is getting sucked up essentially through the princess line. This is a great way to create style and shape without using darts. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating this on the dress form, but if you don't have a dress form, you can pin this on yourself. And if you'd like some tips for that, make sure you check out my video down below in the description. For this process, I'm going to be working with the garment inside out, and I'm going to be pinning it down center front, so that way I don't pull it away from center front. So I'm just going to line up the placket here down center front. And when I'm pinning the center, I like to do up the buttons first if I'm using a button-up shirt. And then I can pin the center front down to the dress form. And this way I can make sure everything stays nice and lined up. Now center front is nice and pinned. Now that center front is nice and pinned, it's gonna help us keep this process balanced. I'm gonna draw with chalk where the princess line is, and I can feel it in the dress form, but it's going to go over essentially like where your nipple is. It starts at the center of the shoulder and it's gonna come down to your nipple and then straight down. So you can always chalk this on yourself as well, just so you have some sort of reference line, but I'm just gonna show you. So this is where we're essentially going to want to create a new seam for our princess line. It's gonna come from the shoulder over the false part of the bust and then down. So this is where we're going to be intaking the fabric to create shape. So I'm gonna start up here at the shoulder. Now the amount you need to take this in is going to depend on how the garment is fitting you. I do need to bring up this shoulder and the armhole over. So I'm going to start up here and I'm gonna pinch the fabric up at the center of the shoulder. And I'm going to pinch it up enough until the shoulder of the shirt is at the shoulder of the dress form. So take it up just a little bit more. And then I'm gonna work down, pulling this over through the center of the bust. And I'm going to keep pinning this. And when you're doing this, you want to look to make sure everything is laying smooth. You don't want to see any weird pull lines, otherwise you are pulling too much or you're pulling in the wrong direction. We want everything to remain nice and smooth. If you were doing this to a dress, you do the same thing. You are taking in the fabric to help create some shape here at the top. Now, when we're at the center of the bust, you're still just making this tuck of fabric. And now we're going to start working down. And when you start doing this, you might start to notice the fabric puckering up a little bit. And it could be because you're creating a fitted design and there's a lot of tension. So we're gonna pin it and then we're gonna go back and clip to release the tension. And I wanna mention, make sure you're not pulling too much from the side seam. So if you are tailoring something, even with princess lines, you're still gonna need to take it in on the side seams. So this is still a seam we need to consider for taking something in, not just the princess line. So this way we can keep our garment balanced. It's all about keeping the proportions balanced. You don't want to take all of this excess that's here on the side and pull it all the way up to the front. So before I continue with that princess line, I'm going to take this in here a bit on the sides to make sure I'm not pulling a bunch of excess from the side seam to my princess line. So this is feeling pretty good over here. And now I'm going to continue with the princess line. And now we're just gonna work all the way down. Now you can keep it really fitted to the body. You can blend it out for a flare. How much you're taking it in is all up to you and how you want it to fit. I'm gonna flare this one out just a little bit so it's not super skin tight. And now on a garment like this, you could go all the way to the hem or you could just blend to the hem. So you don't have to worry about re-hemming it. So for this one, I'm just gonna go down to the hem. I'm not going to go through the hem. So we are going to be blending off before we get to the hem there, which means the amount we're taking in at the very bottom is blending to nothing, essentially like a fisheye dart. So at the hem, there's no fabric being taken in. Now that I have the princess line pinned up and the side, we are going to work on the back, essentially doing the same thing, making sure everything looks smooth and pinning up through the princess line. And if you need to adjust the side a little or unpin anything while you're working on this, you just need to keep working the fabric until you get that nice, smooth fit. Since I'm working in a dress form, I am going to go ahead and pin down center back so nothing moves. If you are doing this on yourself, definitely check out that video I have on how to pin on yourself, because you're not going to be able to do this on yourself. It's a little bit of a different process if you are pinning it on yourself. But same concept with creating the princess lines. When we're starting in the back, we're gonna start at the top of the shoulder where we left off and started on the front. And again, we just want to make sure we're putting this in the quarter part of our body back here, which should be just coming straight down from where you started that princess line on the front. And again, the key is just keeping everything looking nice and smooth. So I'm pulling this over. We got to smooth this out. I'm actually going to undo a pin or two on the side seam. I'll come back to that in a minute. I need a little bit of extra fabric from over there just so I can keep this looking smooth. So that is something you might run into when you are pinning up the back, is that maybe you pin the side seam a little too much. So take a pin out, readjust it, give yourself some more room so that way you can get everything to lay nice and smooth. Smooth is the key here, blended and smooth. So now we need to keep pinning. We're gonna go over the butt. You still got a princess line there. You could stop sooner if you like in your design. With this design, I'm going all the way down to the bottom of the shirt. And then just like the front, I'm just gonna blend off to nothing before I get to the hem. So now I have a princess line pinned up through the back of the dress. So now I have everything pinned on the back, the side, and the front. And we are looking great. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So that way I can try it on and just make sure it's looking good. So now I've done the same thing to the other side and everything is looking good. So now it's time to try it on if you've used a dress form and just make sure everything is laying great and you don't want to adjust any of the pins. Now you can really see how this garment is transforming just with the pins in it. It is fitting us so much nicer. Remember that big boxy shirt? Look at it now. Imagine how good it's going to look at the end. So the thing about pinning it on both sides is that we could have pinned it unevenly and it could be unbalanced. So what we want to do is measure one side at certain points and then measure the other side and make sure we have it pinned the same. And if we don't, we're going to adjust it and balance it out. So here's an example on the side seam. So if I measure at the bottom, the pin over to the side seam, I've got a little over 5/8. Now, if I measure on the other side, I only have a 1/2 inch here. So what we need to do, since the dress did fit, is add these two measurements together and divide in 2, and then we'll know exactly where the pin should be on each side, making it equal. So I've adjusted both of these pins so that they're the same distance from the side. So when you're measuring these, if you're off maybe like a 1/16 of an inch somewhere, you can probably be fine with that. It's not really going to affect the fit too much. But if you're off a 1/4 and a 1/2 and an inch here and there, definitely want to rebalance your garment. Otherwise, you're gonna be all crooked, all sideways, and it's not gonna look so great. And you don't have to check every single pin. That seems daunting. But what I would recommend doing is coming up every 4 or 5 inches or every 2 inches even and measuring and seeing what the difference is. And then rebalancing your garment. And then try it on again and make sure it's good before we start sewing. So I'm gonna go through my garment, rebalance it, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is sewing. Now we wanna mark the shirt up for sewing. So what I like to do is put some chalk where the pin is on one side, and then we're going to reposition the pins. Now I can reposition the pin to put it perpendicular with the seam I'm going to create, and this is going to be so much easier to sew. And you're gonna do that to all of your seams. Now I have all the pins in the shirt perpendicular to the seams we're going to create. So here's the front, and then here's the back. Now we're gonna sew right where we chalked. So we're gonna blend matching each point. If you like, you can also use a ruler and connect all these dots essentially, so you have a line to follow. But I'm just going to sew from one point to another. And we're going to be doing this to those new princess lines that we've created and the side seams. Throughout this process, since you're working with a whole garment, just keep everything nice and flat. Definitely pick it up, look at it. Is everything flat underneath? Get a back stitch at the bottom. And then I'm just going to continue on to the rest of my seams, doing the exact same thing. Now let's move on to our next step. Now what we're gonna do is cut off all these excess pieces here beyond the seam. We do need to leave seam allowance though. I'm gonna leave about a 1/4 inch on mine, and then I'm gonna run it through the serger to clean up the edge. If you don't have a serger, you can zigzag or overcast. We're getting rid of this excess because it's bulky, and our design is gonna lay smoother and flatter to our body if we get rid of the excess. So I'm cutting about a 1/4 of an inch away from the seam, and we have to leave seam allowance because if we don't leave seam allowance, our garment will fall apart when we wear it. Now that I have one side complete, I'm gonna cut off the other side. Now that it's all cut up, I'm ready to finish the edges. Now I'm serging all the seams I just cut off the excess from. If you don't have a serger, you can overcast, or you could use a zigzag stitch. All done serging. And here's our transformed shirt into a dress on. You can see how we now have a nice fit to the dress. And it doesn't have to be skin tight when you're doing this. It can follow your form and still be tailored. And that's all thanks to the princess seams that we added to the front and to the back, along with taking in the sides just a little. Remember how big that shirt was before? This is such a huge difference, and we didn't add darts, we added princess lines. So if you have any garments that are big and lifeless, you can add some tailored style to them by adding princess lines. It also helps take your garments from looking homemade to custom made. We have just elevated the style and the fit of this garment big time with princess lines. I would love to see what you're going to do with princess lines. Make sure you tag me in your projects or send me some photos. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new tutorials come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching today. These videos are for you guys. Let me know what other videos you would like to see coming up this year. And if you'd like to learn even more, make sure to check out my online sewing club where you get a new pattern every month with all kinds of lessons. And if you want to know what's going on in the studio right now, make sure you check out my Instagram. Links for everything are down below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!